Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dhammaya, Namo Sanghaya. Homage to Bharabante, Guru Bante Bhikshu Sangh. My metta to all the Upasakas and Anagarika Samneras, Upasakas and Upasikas. First of all, I sincere wish on this special Ashar Purnima, and I welcome heartily all of you, all the Upasakas, Upasikas, and we have some special guests who are friends of Radigaru. Some of we will later introduce by you, Upasaka. Okay. So we have that, and our chief guest, Shri Mahmud Hari Krishna Garu. He will be coming, and today, Director of Telangana Culture and Tourism, Culture and Language. He has been very helpful to us. So our Reddy Garu will later introduce him and introduce his friends as well. But meanwhile, we welcome all of you to this special day. So today, this day is known by different names. One of the popular name is Asala Purnima. अभी लेंगे इसकी बात लेंगे, थोड़ा लोग आ जाएंगे ना, और थोड़ा जो देर से आया है ये Pasika is asking for Ashtashila, so we will do little later since till some more people come. So it is popularly known as Ashala Purnima with the name of the Purnima itself. And as you know, all the Purnimas are auspicious for Buddhists. The reason being that on Purnima, large number of people, in fact most Buddhist people, they follow or undertake the Attashila. That's why this Upasika came. He thought I forgot to give Attashila. So that shows it's very important for her. And of course it is very important because it is very meritorious, you know. So when all over the world people on the same day take Attashila, the 8th precept, which is higher Shila, so then you can imagine that there is a kind of spiritual energy flowing all over the world. So that is one of the reasons why these Purnimas are special for people, for Buddhists, especially for Buddhists. And it has always been a culture, even among the Indian culture, larger Indian culture, Purnima has been special because many of the spiritual activities are performed on Purnimas, the Purnami, the full moon day. And even Buddha, while he was a bodhisattva in his past life, when he was preparing to achieve Buddhahood, to fulfilling the paramis, the spiritual qualities, he used to follow Attashila a lot. Even when he was an animal, even the realm of Nagas, when he was a Naga, born as Naga, he used to follow. It is called Uposatha Shila. So therefore, this Purnima in general is very important for the Indians and especially for Buddhists as a culture and as a practice. And in many places, people spend the entire day and night in the vihara in some of the Buddhist culture. So that is one of the reasons. And today, more specifically, is also known as Dhammacakka Pavattana Day. That is turning the wheel of Dhamma. Chakra is wheel, Pavattana is turning. So turning the wheel of Dhamma, the teaching, the truth. So on this day, the Buddha, after 2 months of achieving Buddhahood in Bodh Gaya, he gives his first teaching in Sarnath near Varanasi, the Benares, near Kasi. So he gives the first teaching to the 5 monks. They were not actually monk. They were not. They were more like an ascetic. Of course, they were renunciate, but still not a monk. So they were with him during his 6 years of struggle for spiritual awakening. So they were with him, but meanwhile he understood that extreme spiritual practice is not the way, right? He literally became a living skeleton, right? He looked like a skeleton because he stopped eating for a long time. He used to not eat for a long period of time. And that kind of made him very weak and very, very skinny. And when he did it to the max, he says that nobody did like him in the Indian history. At one point he says that. This kind of extreme spiritual thing, not eating, exposing to chilly, cold winter and scorching sun in the daytime. So he used to do all of that, and finally he didn't get anything, just physical pain, mental pain, nothing, right? So then he came up with this idea of Majjhima Patipada, the middle path, the middle path. Which is devoid of any form of extremes, whether it is sensual indulgence, sensual extremes, or self-religious extremes. There are 2 different ways, as you know, the kind of a sensual world and the religious kind of a world, or what we call the spiritual world. So Buddha lived both. He was a very wealthy child, and he had all those extreme form of sensual indulgence. And now when he turns to spirituality as an ascetic, he took an extreme form of spiritual practice, because that was the belief in India at that time. Even today we have many ascetics in the Himalayas and those region. So he did that, and then he found it is not giving him any result, even though he did for 6 long years. And then finally he takes the middle path, which he thought is better, and that was making him better in spirituality. So he found that the problem of suffering is not in the physical. By giving pain to the body, you don't get any happiness, any spiritual growth, but by training the mind, you see. So then, therefore, those 5 monks had left him, and then they were in the Varanasi. So then when Buddha got the enlightenment in Bodh Gaya at the age of 35, by taking the middle path, so he thought, let me go and teach here them. He found them through his own mental eye, Dhammacakka, and he goes there, and then he starts with the first thing that he says is, there are these 2 extremes, monk. You have to avoid these 2 extremes and follow the middle path. That's how he starts his teaching, right? Avoid 2 extremes, avoid any extremes, and follow the middle path. And that's the discovery he had for himself. And then he says, what is the middle path? And he says the middle path is the eightfold path, the noble eightfold path. Arya Atthangika Magga. Arya means noble one, saint, those who become free, enlightened, awaken. So it's a path that leads you to awakening, to the spiritual awakening, to free from ignorance, because Buddha says that the root cause of all our suffering is ignorance, and because of ignorance there is craving, and because of craving there is this whole cycle of karma, and then rebirth, and again rebirth, on and on, on and on, on and on. So that's how we have this cycle of birth and death. So the Buddha spoke about the middle path, which is the Eightfold Path. The right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, samadhi. So these are the way. The Buddha says these are the way to end suffering. And the very purpose of this Eightfold Path is to reduce and eventually eradicate, cease suffering once for all. But the beauty here is that as you walk on this path, your suffering starts dropping down. It starts reducing, and eventually you achieve the final freedom from suffering. You see, so that's why we have these Four Noble Truths, Chattari Arya Satyani. That was also part of this first teaching. That is, there is suffering. The recognizing that there is suffering in the world, right? We all know, all of you who are adult, who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, they know, the sufferings of the world, both the outer world and your own inner world. There is some or other suffering that we all go through. And this doesn't mean that Buddha is, melancholic, which is to see suffering to be negative. It's not to be negative, but it is the recognition, it is the acceptance that there is suffering. So when we don't accept the suffering as it is, we suffer more. That's the logic behind. Therefore, this recognition of suffering. But Buddha just doesn't stop there. He says there is a cause for suffering, which is ignorance and craving, our own ignorance and craving. And there is an end of the suffering also, which is the cessation of ignorance and craving, you see. And the way is the Noble Eightfold Path. So these are the Four Noble Truths: suffering, cause of suffering, end of suffering, and the way to the end of suffering. So these Four Noble Truths are the central teaching of Buddha, the foundational teaching of Buddha, the core teaching of Buddha, and all the other teaching that we see in the Tripitaka, all the suttas, Vinaya, Abhidhamma, meditation, culture, shilas, or punya, parami, everything that we do is all centered around, all connected to or supportive for this realization of Four Noble Truths. And to make it even more simple, we can put it in two phrases, two lines actually, which Buddha says in one sutta, that I teach only two things, that is suffering, and I teach you only two things, that is I let you know what is suffering, and I also let you know what is the end of suffering. So this is the Four Noble Truth teaching that Buddha gave. And apart from this, on today